Well, willkommen, bienvenidos, all the other welcomes across the world, everybody. How are you? And welcome to a very special extended version of Living on Music. I am Steve Houk, and I am really excited to have everybody along for this ride tonight. Behind me, you see the amazing Bethesda Blues and Jazz Club, which I know everybody misses dearly. It's another one of those amazing venues. Well, my guest tonight, it just encompasses a lot of who he is and where he's from and what kind of musical impact he's made. Chuck Sullivan is a musical icon in this area, has been around for 50 plus years playing music that long. Number of great bands that have gone, kind of into the local legend status. Of course, Bandhouse Gigs, but that is coming in a little while. We're really, really excited. It is a long, wonderful journey with Chuck tonight. So again, batten down the hatches and get ready. If you want to take a musical journey, so many of you have worked with Chuck. So many of you have done Bandhouse Gigs, played with him in bands. This is a really, really fun ride to take with Chuck. So we're really excited. First tonight, I'm going to do a shout out to my buddies at the Birchmere. The Birchmere obviously has also been affected by what's going on, having to limit attendance and things like that. But they are forging ahead, obviously, all as much as they possibly can. And this Saturday night, the 12th of December, is an amazing artist, Junior Brown. Junior Brown is an American country guitarist and singer, has released a dozen studio albums in his career. He's been on the Billboard singles charts. He's something else special. He has a signature instrument called the gitsteel, like guitar, but gitsteel, and it's kind of a two-pronged double neck guitar, a hybrid of electric guitar and lap steel. But he really puts on a wonderful show. And if you guys can and you feel safe, the Birchmere would love to see you. They're missing so many of the people that come see shows. They do have wonderful social distancing. They do scrub the place down with the same kind of fog materials that hospitals use in a lot of places. So you should feel relatively safe there. Again, it's a personal decision, but we love the Birchmere. Can't wait to continue to collaborate with them. But this, again, December 12th, 7:30 at the Birchmere is the great Junior Brown. As I've done in every show, I believe, since I began this in April 13th with Scott Kurt, we are talking about SaveOurStages.com, the National Independent Venue Association, the critical nature of the Restart Act, which is still sitting in Congress, like the Stimulus Act and a lot of senators or GOP politicians conceding. It's all sitting there. This is also sitting there, the Restart Act. And it is really, really something that you need to know about and be a part of. SaveOurStages.com is where you want to go. But real briefly, I'm going to read a little bit of exactly what the Restart Act states. And basically, it extends the Paycheck Protection Program established to support small businesses in response to COVID-19. For certain businesses, it establishes a loan program whereby the Small Business Administration shall guarantee loan amounts to certain businesses. It is specifically, the bill provides a paycheck protection loan recipient with 16 weeks to use funds if the recipient has less than 500 employees. Go to SaveOurStages.com, sign the petition, contribute if you can to the NIVA emergency fund for venues, because right now, guys, venues are still closing. They'll reopen hopefully at some point, but this gives them a chance to stay open while this is going on. I know President-elect Biden talked about this in that recent interview with Jake Tapper on CNN. And, he talked about the general small business situation where, let's get it before people go out of business, give them money to sustain at least enough to stay, and then hopefully jump back in when people can have more attendance and open up these places wider. But right now you can't. So again, SaveOurStages.com. Speaking of places that are continuing to generate live music, my buddies, the wonderful people of Classical Movements, are continuing their Secret Garden concerts. And it is wonderful to see that these are continuing to be attended. Again, I've been to one of them, very, very smartly distanced, but gosh, you feel like you're in some fantasy land, some Nirvana, some incredible place, Shangri-La. It is just a beautiful place. And the next show that you want to look at is on Saturday, December 19th, 1 o'clock. It is a Camerata Baltimore, and it is a wide-ranging chamber program of singers of the Camerata Baltimore performing gospel, spirituals, classical repertoire to celebrate Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Christmas. You're going to hear some of Handel's Messiah. This is top level stuff, you guys. And it is at classicalmovements.com /secret gardens. Concerts are live, concerts on their tabs. You should try to get a chance to go and see this. Again, it's 1 o'clock, December 19th. James Mayo III is the artistic director. This is top shelf people. That evening, there are typically 2 shows in the evening when they can combine the days. The 5 p.m. show is sold out. But again, this is Saturday at 6:30 p.m. after they've kind of cleared the area and kind of gotten ready for the evening show. This is the members of the NSO and the Kennedy Center Opera House Orchestra and their guests. I mean, you don't get any better. And it's called Spectacular Brass. I mean, music for a brass quintet. Talk about raising your spirits and, dancing a little bit in your seats and stuff. This sounds like it's going to be a wonderful show. And it's joyous, international holiday favorites. Little Drummer Boy, Patapan, I Wonder As I Wander, O Come, Emmanuel. Selections from Bach's Christmas Oratorio, etc. Again, Classical Movements is a world-renowned organization that is really trying to find ways to continue to move forward, and they're doing their absolute best. And I interviewed Nita Helms. If you go to our Zebra videos page and search for Nita's show, we had a wonderful time talking about Classical Movements. So again, these are 2 more shows in 2020 that will really lift your spirits. And it's classicalmovements.com /secret garden concerts or live concerts. Really exciting too. One more mention before we go delve into the wonderful journey of Chuck Sullivan. Arch Alcantara, who has played at a number of Bandhouse gigs, is one of the most respected musicians in this entire area. I got to stand on stage with him at the Barns of Wolf Trap to open the Elvis Costello Bandhouse Gigs tribute show. And what a thrill that was. We opened up with Pump It Up, and I'm telling you, well, you'll hear enough about that when we're talking with Chuck about Bandhouse Gigs, because anybody who does Bandhouse Gigs it's an unforgettable experience. But Arch is a lifetime musician, just fantastic guy. And I've had him on with Ruthie Logsdon in one of my shows already, and they were playing some live music out on the porch and talking about their careers. The Acoustic Guitar Project is something amazing. It's a global music platform and concert series that inspires musicians to write an original song and record it live in 1 week. And basically they choose a city, 5 local musicians, give them an acoustic guitar, or, they've got an acoustic guitar, most of them, but Arch had one. They have 1 week to write an original song and record it live, no editing. And each musician signs that guitar though, when they get it, and takes a picture with it. And what we have is Arch Alcantara, as you can see in this picture right here, with his song Way Past That Now. And he signed that guitar in his hand, and that goes around through all the musicians who do this. But this song is absolutely wonderful. I totally encourage you to go and find it later this evening at, again, theacousticguitarproject.com. And you scroll down, you'll see Arch, and it's called Way Past That Now. And it's a wonderful song. It's great to hear new music created during this time. And again, by such great musicians like Arch. So go check it out again, acousticguitarproject.com. So I really have to wonder if there's anyone who's been in the DC area musical mix longer than my esteemed guest tonight, Mr. Chuck Sullivan. I mean, anyone who has been and still is ingrained deeper in the area's musical loop, has been soaking in the musical magic of this region more voluminously than he has for so long. If there's anyone who can attest to more than all of that, more than my guest tonight, well, I'll eat my hat. And actually, he has all the hats. You'll be seeing those in a minute. If I had one, I'd eat it, because there are a few people with that acumen around here. We all know them. Tommy Lepson is one who's been around for so long, and every guest I think that I've had on this show in about 6 or 8 months has collaborated with Tommy on one level or the other. There's, of course, Ronnie Newmeyer, who knows so many of you from all of the Bandhouse Newmeyer Flyer gigs, and Chuck has known him and is a co-founder and a long partner of Ronnie's, and Ronnie's been around. But overall, there are very few of these guys who have been so deeply entwined in so many aspects of this area's musical environment like Chuck Sullivan has. Resume, playing music for 50 plus years, drums, one of the extraordinary and most respected drummers around here, and a percussionist as well. Is also a songwriter for nearly every band he's in, and he's not a singing drummer, so that is a very interesting kind of thing, and we'll talk on that about that in a few minutes. One of his biggest kind of achievements and probably joys in his life as being the co-founder, as I just said, the business manager in charge of merchandise, CD distribution, and of course percussion. Playing in a lot of the Bandhouse gigs is with Bandhouse Gigs, and which is again one of the area's most well-known, if not the most well-known musical tribute entity. And I've been so honored to sing in two of their gigs, and they've been two of the greatest experiences of my life. So incredible these guys are. And oh yes, the author of About Time, which is a wonderful biographical ode and chronicle of the career of the legendary Steve Winwood. So we'll talk about Stevie Winwood a little bit, and he's one of my favorites as well. All of that is why I need to just cut down this intro. Come on, Steve, and get the shoe and the rude. Ladies and gentlemen, what a pleasure this is going to be. Please welcome my buddy, the great Chuck Sullivan. Hey, Chuck, how are you, man? We did it.
Yes, we did. Hey, Steve, how you doing? Thanks for having me on, and thanks to my lifelong artist friend, Lee Weinstone, for borrowing his office to do this little interview. And it's nice to see you broadcasting from the Bethesda Blues and Jazz. Is that open again?
Yeah, well, I wish. And again, that's what I do in every show. I throw a virtual venue behind me, and we've had everything from Greek theaters in the middle of Greece to the Red Rocks, Madison Square Garden, the Birchmere, any venue that feels right. And this felt right for you, since you have had some triumphant gigs there with a number of different of your collaborations. And boy, are there a bunch, man. I mean, again, when I do this show, I learn a lot about people. We delve into your life pretty deeply musically for the most part, and you really have a wonderful, I knew you had depth, but geez, we're going to go down that road today. I wanted to talk a little bit about, again, one day we won't have to talk about this stuff, Chuck, musicians and me on this show, but, we've been 8 months of hell for musicians in a lot of ways, but people have been doing what they have to do. Basically, how are you doing? How's your family doing? I mean, how have you hung in there and stayed sane during this craziness?
Well, you got to do what you can. I mean, you can still write songs. You can still do these kind of things. And Bandhouse has done some streams, which have been a lot of fun, a very steep learning curve. And we try to do some comedy skits, even though we know we're not SNL or anything, but we're just goofing. We're trying to provide some distraction for us and for everybody else. So, you do what you can. I mean, I'm not fighting it. It's no hoax to me. I'm
right.
Happy to comply.
Well, one of my favorite things of this kind of sequestering virtual entertainment world, and God, people are doing some amazing things. We've had about 30 plus artists on playing music live for me, and at least a lot of them are doing virtual shows. I know Ruthie and the Wranglers and Patty and Dave Chappell and Bobby Thompson. The list is endless. You guys have been doing what you mentioned, from Bandhouse to Your House, which is just in so many ways wonderful. It is hilarious in parts of it, campy and fun as hell. We were talking yesterday about Ronnie Newmeyer, your pal in life with Bandhouse, playing Ron Kirshner instead of Don Kirshner's rock concert of the 70s, and his wig, and then the makeup thing. But it largely what you've done too is what I've tried to do in one way, is to get musicians to have something to engage with.
Well, Ronnie is seriously out of control. I mean, he's unstable. We can't stop him. We've tried. We've given up. We're just telling him go with it.
Reining him in.
There's no reining him in. There never has been.
Right. That's why he's Ronnie.
I've been in bands with Ronnie since 1980. In fact, we've been in every band together all the way through the 2000s. So right. I know Ronnie pretty well. Yeah. And we met back. Both of us were doing a gig at the Ontario Theatre in Adams, Morgan, which hardly anyone attended but the bands. I was in Off Balance. He was in the Tom Lofgren band. And we met, but we didn't really have a friendship until later when I was in Big Yankee Dollar and he was in Bill Holland and Ren Stew.
Right.
Which I later joined. But when those two bands were active, which was basically late 70s, early 80s, we did a lot of gigs together, and that's when we really struck up a friendship. And then from then on, we've been together really. And
well, and you can tell the chemistry with all of you guys in the Bandhouse Gigs video. We'll definitely get to talk about the entity that is the amazing Bandhouse Gigs in a few minutes. There's a clip that I love that you tossed my way if I wanted to roll, and let's do it. It is a really fun clip with, gosh, some people that I've played with, had on the show and loved. The Sidleys, of course. Steve Sidley plays 3 friggin' instruments here: guitar, keys, and bass. So talented. Annie, obviously, chiming in with her amazing vocals. You've got Tommy Lepson, again, who's in every conceivable music project in this area all the time. And then the great Darren Blessman. And you wanted to kind of give Darren a shout out. I know that's why you love doing this, right?
Well, Darren's a good friend. He's an amazing drummer. I love talking with him. I love hearing him play. I really miss hearing him play because he plays with everybody. And I would hear him play with Eric Scott and with Beast from the East and Marianne Redmond. It was just all awesome. I would always learn stuff from him. He was very willing to share his drum licks with me. He'd even come over if I was working on something and give me, his advice on how he tackled that issue.
Right.
But the I Wish thing kind of started. I was watching a video of Kid Charlemagne by Steely Dan. I was going, what a funky groove. I'd love to do a duet with Darren on this. And
Get along. Yeah, that is an awesome song. Yeah.
But then we decided we should do a song that Bandhouse had already done at one of our tributes. So we picked I Wish. And it was only possible because Steve Sidley was so willing to go out and play all those instruments and create a track that he forwarded to me. Then I played my drum part. I forwarded that to Darren. Then he played his drum part. We forwarded that to Trevor Spreck and Justine Miller, who were our horn players. Trevor played 2 horns. Justine played trumpet. And then we forwarded that to Annie Sidley and Tommy Lepson, who did the vocals. And then Danny Schwartz, the amazing Danny Schwartz in Bandhouse, did all that syncing up and editing, which we couldn't have done any of that without Danny. Danny is the guy who made it all possible with Bandhouse.
Yeah, and we'll be bringing up Danny absolutely more too. And I love the fact that he jumped in on that because he's such a deep part of your place and the Hamilton and just a lot of different things. Let's take a little bit of a ride to a song put out by Stevie Wonder on his album Songs in the Key of Life. This is one of his most kind of fun groove songs of all time. And what a wonderful local cast from Bandhouse to your house. Here's I Wish.
I thought to myself, I wish I could do a drum duet with an amazing drummer like Darren Blessman. And I thought, I wish I could do a song with Tommy Lepson. And I wish the Sidleys could be involved. And I wish we had a killer horn section. The only thing I couldn't figure out is I wish I could remember the name of the song that we could do. So here's a song from our Stevie Wonder tribute from 2012, our first show at the Fillmore with over 50 musicians and our first experience with the Sidleys. I just can't remember the name of the song.
What would be my toy? Even though we sometimes would not give a thing, we were happy with the joy the day would bring. Sneaking out the back door to hang out with those hoodlum friends of mine. Ooh, breathing at the back door. I thought I told you not to go outside. Best to bring up water to your eyes, thinking it might stop us from whooping your behind. I wish those days could come back once more. I said those days ever had to go. I wish those days could come back once more. I said those days
Wow, you guys really found a groove in that, and I love the dual drumming on a song like that. And must have been a lot of fun when it was done to see that final product, huh?
It was awesome. I mean, Darren and I, we talked about the camera angles so that we could kind of point and look at each other, even though we weren't there. Because if you can fool the viewer just for a second, that it's live, it just makes it that much more fun.
It was worth every second. And there's so many good moments on both of those shows. And do you guys have another one coming out? I forgot to ask that prior. If you guys have another one coming out in any time soon.
Well, we had 2 sold out Linda Ronstadt shows in April that were rescheduled to next April. And now, of course, everyone is figuring out what's going to happen next April. So we're talking with them, and it'll be based on the current data and the status of the vaccine and all that. So that I'm hoping that goes forward, but we'll see. And then we had a gig lined up at the Warner Theater, and we had, a bunch of great superstars lined up to be on that show last August. And of course, that was canceled, but hopefully that'll happen again next August. So we're definitely, into 2021. The stuff that Bandhouse does is the least conducive to a pandemic because we include 40 to 60 musicians. And that's over the course of a show. When they rehearse, which is at my house, also known as the Bandhouse, I have 25 to 30 people in my house at the same time. And frankly, I think the willingness to rehearse will be the first sign that things are easing up. And right now, no one is willing to go into one's basement with 25 people and rehearse. That goes for a 9-piece soul band, Soul Crackers, as well. It's just, it's too much risk right now,
Right.
It'll change.
Well, since we're talking about Bandhouse Gigs, let's jump into a little before we kind of take a walk down memory lane of the bands that you were constructed in and kind of built your musical background. How did Bandhouse come to be? I know it's you and Ronnie were buddies at that point. What was the reasoning behind how it formulated as kind of a tribute entity doing, shows about Elvis Costello, Stevie Winwood, David Bowie, etc.?
Well, as with all cool things, it happened very organically. We weren't trying to do anything. We were trying to put on a great show for Nils because Ronnie and I are huge fans. We both played with him. I've seen Nils play since I was 18. I've got all of his albums, and it was a dream come true to get to play with him. So Wham's Time Life series wanted to do a tribute, and Strathmore was willing to do it outdoors. And we had no idea what we were doing. We just knew his music, and we knew a lot of people who knew Nils who would probably come in, and that's where Ronnie just really excels. He's the artistic liaison. He knows everybody. Everybody loves him. I love him too. He made Bandhouse kind of happen, and yet some things he's not as strong at as perhaps I am. I'm better with organization and structure and collaboration and creating this entity called Bandhouse Gigs, which really did require a lot of organization as we got more and more into it. So we did one. It was a huge success. They, I remember the county executive came out and proclaimed it Nils Lofgren Day. The media covered it big time. And when it was over, we had no idea how it happened. I was totally intimidated. I mean, I was scared it was all going to fall apart. I didn't know what I was doing there. But Strathmore said, that was great. How about we do another?
Yeah. And on it went. Yeah. Well, but before we go back into a couple of the other things I wanted to talk about with Bandhouse, because it's such an experience, especially for a middle-aged cover band singer, to be asked to be in there with people like all of the people that I've had on my show who've been on Bandhouse. I swear every guest I've had has done one of your gigs or is a staple. The Bill Starks, the Sidleys, the Eric Scotts. This clip we're going to show is from a recently released, I think, full show that Ronnie was very excited. All you guys were excited about releasing this show. It was the first show, as Chuck just said, at the Strathmore with the one and only Nils Lofgren. And I've interviewed Nils twice now, talked for 35, 40 minutes. What a sweet guy. Met him at the Birchmere and ended up finding seats for the Lofgren family because I got up front. It was a whole long story there, but what a blast. But this is a great clip of a song you guys did. And also Tommy Keene. is in the mix, who is the late great Tommy Keene. Ronnie just wrote a beautiful tribute song to him. Have to play that on the show probably soon. But right now, let's dive into where Chuck was just saying. Let's go to the Strathmore back at the first Bandhouse Gigs for a little bit of Love or Else.
Sun is shining for everyone on their way. You never shine for anyone, and I pay, yes I pay.
You make life for winter for me, and I'm cold in winter. Can't you see, baby, that I need love? Yeah.
Give me now, baby, love or else. Give me now, baby, love or else. Give me now, baby, love or else. Give me now, baby, love or else.
Can't you stop and quit on me like that?
Love or else. Love or else. Love or else. I'm kinda rusty with words. It's been a long, long time since the girls come along. I wanna make mine.
I'm certain you'll fill my head with doubt. If you're gonna hurt me, then get out now of my bed, baby. Can't you see, lady, I need a love else. Yeah.
Give me now, baby, love or else.
You better think twice.
Yeah, Chuck, you kicked it in that clip, and basically you don't get better than that with that group of guys on stage. What an amazing thing to kick off. No wonder it's been a success for 30 years, is it, or thereabouts?
16.
Yeah, it seems like it's been 100,
Right.
but it's been yeah, been an incredible run so far. The thing that I noticed when I came on board, and again, I'm as a not a lifetime musician or one of the people you'd had in there, I was new to the Chuck Sullivan rehearsal hall, but I got a real sense early on, because you wait around a little bit as you're waiting to do your songs. Each group of people that you have who are collaborating, it might be a new bass player, it might be a new me, a new singer. There's a lot of Chuck Sullivan drumming though in those songs, I notice. But I noticed the organization of something like that goes so deep. It's not just about the music, as you well know, because you have a lot of the organizational things. It must be great to have people, like your left and right hand people in there, like the Dave Slesses and the other people. You can name them all, because they deserve credit, all of them.
Oh, wow. There's so many people. I mean, the 5 people who kind of were involved at the beginning in establishing the concept and the song list are Ronnie and me, and then David Dude Sless and Danny Schwartz and Greg Harden.
Yeah.
All of us have known each other for quite a long time. But there's another 20 people who handle merchandise, graphic art, marketing, writing the liner notes. We have professional writers. We have professional photographers. We have John Collins with Happy Medium, who's done all the video, and the videos have turned out awesome. I mean, they're 4-camera edited shots, and they really make us look even better than we are.
Oh, tell me about it. I the one I saw, I'm like, wait a minute, is that me up there, or am I playing at a small bar somewhere? I mean, spectacular job they all do. Well, again, and you guys recruit the most incredible bunch of musicians to do it, and they love it. So it could be a little bit of an exhausting thing. Some people might want to do more than they do, whatever. you guys manage these people so well, and how do you think that came to be, that everybody seems to love doing it so much?
Absolutely, Steve. I think it's because there's no money involved, and that was a hard thing to get used to. You're always used to kind of having money play a factor in your artistic decisions. May not be the only factor or the priority, but it's in the mix. But with Bandhouse, all the people I mentioned, along with 20 other people, are doing this for either free or next to nothing.
Right.
And when you have all these people doing it for free and being super nice and into it, just to put on a great show, it just changes everybody's attitude. There's no competition. Everybody just wants everybody to do well so we can put on a great show. That's the only agenda. And so it's easy to make decisions when that is your agenda. It's not making money. So we kept our ticket prices low for our fans. I mean, really, they've been as low as we can possibly make them and still pay everybody the little amount we pay them.
And you sell it out, they're sold out.
And they sell out, yeah.
Yeah.
And for everybody who participates, it's a networking thing. You meet friends and then you collaborate and you form bands or you do a recording session. And I've met so many people, and everybody's just really appreciative. And that they come into it like that. I mean, maybe first timers don't understand how it's all for free and everything, but they quickly get it. So we have a lot of older people like me with a second career and producing shows and getting to play on the Fillmore, Strathmore, Wolf Trap, Hamilton, Ram's Head Live. I mean, the great stages in the area that we would never get to play on. But we also get lots of young people in their teens who are more than happy to join us, learn 2 or 3 songs, maybe sing some background. And we make those decisions on the spot at rehearsal as the songs are developing, and you've got this audience watching them develop. And then you say, hey, come over and sing a background part, or let's add a horn part here.
Right.
And it's just a huge collaboration. And the rehearsals to me is really one of the most fun times. You're eating, you're drinking, you're listening to music, you're hanging out with your friends, you're meeting new people. It's just
you're sitting next to the huge leg lamp. I mean, it's like being in a rock and roll museum, you guys, because he has, before you enter into the true music room, there's a wall of albums that are always fun to kind of peruse. And it is, I've been singing for a little bit, not just 5 minutes before I walked in that door, but boy, was it an exhilarating experience for somebody, especially like me. And, the support was great. Everybody, a lot of the people that I'd sung in that Bowie thing had been there with you guys for years. And it feels you feel appreciated at whatever level you're at. And then you're standing up there doing it. And when you walk off, you feel you've made this impact. And the Fillmore was mind blowing. It's an incredible thing. You started this. It seems to be something, you called it the second act in your musical career, but you continue to play actively, right, in the Bandhouse, in a lot of the Bandhouse Gig shows.
I do kind of cherry pick the songs that I know the
You're
most.
allowed.
No one objects, because frankly, I need to pick songs I'm familiar with because I'm doing a lot of other things while the show is going on. I'm kind of just checking out that merch is happening, that the food is happening. There's always things that come up. I'm the drum tech on the show. I organize the percussion before and during the show. So I'm running around. I mean, we're busy, but it's a fun busy, and the time just flies by. Before you know it, you're at the finale and everybody's coming on stage and you're going, well, what happened? It's a time traveling experience. It's really great. I have no complaints.
Are there any fun, brief little nutshell stories that come to your mind when there's probably 150,000 of them that come to mind about any of these Bandhouse gigs that you remember, things that were, I know, but while you're thinking of that, I'll tell you that when I sang at the Elvis Costello one at the Barns, I parked my car at the top of the lot in the back by the Barns and saw Eric Scott and Gina Coco over there, got with them. I did not put my emergency brake on my car, and it rolled all the way down the entire parking lot. and bumped up against a tree, and we couldn't find it when I came out. So that's my, yeah, it was incredible. I'm walking around the parking lot, and there are people coming out who'd seen the show, and they're like, great job. God, you sounded so good. Yeah, fun. You guys are amazing. And I'm like, where's my car? So that is an interesting non-musical anecdote that I haven't really shared with many people before. So that's a Living on Music premiere. But anything that jumps out at you that, it can be of any kind. I mean, there's so many musical moments too, or things that have happened over the years with Bandhouse.
Well, we didn't lose any cars, but we did lose some performers once. At Strathmore, we had the ability to use like the upper balconies as kind of a second stage, so we could get a trio made up there while we were doing a massive stage transition, which is what Greg Harden is in charge of. And so we would, put the camera up there and we'd have to get mics up there. And it was a couple of floors up, and there was an elevator. And so we had to have someone kind of in charge of escorting guests. And some got stuck in the elevator, and we didn't know where they were. And fortunately, they came out. And like with everything Bandhouse, we just kind of lucked out when we ran into these. Like, we had rain dates for our first 3 shows. They were outdoor shows. And we didn't know until much later that there was no rain date. I mean, we said there was because we were told there was, but we only had one day to make it happen. And it was in summer when a thunderstorm could have ruined everything. But the gods were with us. I think they appreciated that we were working for free or something. I don't know.
Oh God, that is great. Well, we'll bang down the Bandhouse road as we go along here. We're going to actually also go to another tune from that Bowie tribute that I was. I'm trying to think. Did you play on the songs that I sang on? Do you remember that? I don't remember.
I played on Ashes to Ashes, and I played on
Blue Jean.
Blue Jean, yeah. I played on both.
Yeah, that was a stunning experience with you guys, especially with Kitchen over here and the Sidleys over there, and you on the drum. I mean, and Gant on bass. I mean, actually, Chuck, what I think we'll do. I want to jump back into a quick clip of another Bandhouse Gigs song that you played on. It is the very near and dear to my heart David Bowie gig, which I got to sing at, as I've mentioned, as we talked about. This was a wonderful rendition of Let's Dance by David that has a number of my musical pals in it. The Sidleys, Annie and Steve Sidley, Flo Anito. It's got Desson Thompson doing the lead vocals, and Desson is just a talent of many, many aspects. Amazing writer, critic, and singer and performer. Kind of wrote us through that show, actually, as kind of a host. But Chuck, I just want to roll this one in, and you played drums on it. It is, again, from the Bandhouse Gigs on August 13th, 2016 at the Fillmore in Silver Spring. And this is a little bit of David Bowie's Let's Dance.
Into my arms and tremble like a flower.
vault back a few decades into the amazing life of Chuck Sullivan, because I just want to touch on some of your bands that really obviously became parts of your life musically, and also were influences and songwriting experiences too. You've lived in Bethesda your whole life, right? You went to Winston Churchill, so you're born and bred in Bethesda. So that's why this background even makes more sense than, and I planned that. But anyway, what I love, one thing you told me early on, you can talk a little bit, Chuck, about musical influences in your family, in the region, or things that got to you even young. But I love that fact that your godmother gave you a toy snare drum. And what age was that?
12.
So had you touched anything musically before that, really?
Unfortunately, I did touch a clarinet, but I was horrible. I was just doing like squeaks on it. I can do a good squeak, but I was totally frustrated. I couldn't read. I was faking it. And then I really wasn't enjoying it. And so I was grateful. My godmother gave me this little toy drum, and Batman would come on TV, and I'd play along with it. And Hawaii 5-0 would come on, and I'd play along with it. And,
well, that's one hell of a song to jump into. Hawaii 5-0, of all songs to jump into as a little drummer kid. God, that is just, I mean, God.
I'm not saying I played it correctly. I'm saying I played along with it.
Right. Training.
Yeah, it was, but I do it endlessly. And my parents were very supportive. They could see I was into it. And they bought me my first Ludwig set up at Washington Music. And I have my Red Sparkle set. I mean, Ringo inspired me for sure. Most drummers my age, because he's on TV. You're watching him. Yeah. You can't play, but you're saying, God, I just want to be Ringo, Right. And so I would play in front of the reflection off a sliding glass door with a pool cue, like I was playing some instrument. But I moved, and then when I came over towards where Churchill was, that's when I started actually playing drums. And there were people in my neighborhood who were figuring this stuff out too. And that whole generation, music was everywhere. Everybody kind of at least was going to try to play an instrument. It's not so much true today, unfortunately. But
right, that's true. You went to University of Maryland. My son graduated there 3 years ago, so we're Terps ourselves. And you minored in music, but you were writing short stories at the time, which I love the thought of that. That's not something I hear from a lot of musician guests I have, or even friends that, they write a lot of kind of, are writers of that ilk. And how did you begin to write short stories? And do you remember one or two of them and what they were about, or were they just kind of experimental, or what?
Well, it was English major. So I was taking creative writing courses, and they would try to make us write like Updike or Hemingway or Fitzgerald. That was kind of era. I was into Victorian literature for the most part, and early American literature. So I was emulating those writers. But when I started writing on my own, I was kind of trying to get a little more quirky. And, I thought I was living kind of an odd life, just music. If you have the calling of music and you graduate from college, it gives you this great period of time when you don't have to commit to a career. Your career is music, and it's so much fun. It doesn't even feel like you're working. And so you get such validation from the audience and from your peers that you feel like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing right now. And So I became a full-time musician. And in that process, of course, I'm not making much money. So you got to find another way to make money. And I was a carpenter, and I would work any kind of odd job. And when I was doing that, I'd meet all kinds of odd characters, and I just try to write short stories around them and send them off to every place I could think of. And I was determined to wallpaper my bedroom with rejection letters. And I came very close, because none of them ever got published. And of course, I would try for stuff like the New Yorker and Playboy magazine. I wasn't willing to start slow. I wanted to go right to the top, because I believe.
Wow, that is the top. Yeah.
Well, I didn't get published, and and yet I was continuing to play, and the gigs got more, and the pay got up. I could eke by with that and another part-time job, and it was so much fun. I was into group house living. I really enjoyed group house living.
Did you around that time when you was it after you graduated, shortly after, during your stint at Maryland, when did Sagebrush and Tic Tac, which was kind of your first two bands? One was a wedding band, and I love the fact that you said it's still the most lucrative band I've ever been in. That makes sense. Touch on those two bands and when that started.
Well, they were both about the same time while I was going to Maryland.
Okay.
Off Balance was my original music outlet, and that's when I started contributing songs. Actually, I was trying to sing then. My register was extremely low, and also when I drum, I tend to kind of like hold my breath at different times as I'm doing a fill. So I would try to sing. I wanted to sing. I really did. I never took one voice lesson in my life. But I was taking tons of drum lessons, and I had a great teacher named Dave Cole. A lot of drummers will know that name from the past.
Right.
It's either Walter Saab or Dave Cole. A lot of people my age, and they were really good at just inspiring and encouraging you to develop your own thing and not be so hung up on trying to be the best riffed out, drummer, but be a guy who's playing an ensemble. So I got the original music outlet, which was great. And that started it. Sagebrush was a high school band that played songs a lot from Woodstock and Grand Funk Railroad. We did a lot of them, and we would play bars even though we were kind of too young. And that's my kind of rite of passage of getting ripped off by Barry Richards, which I think almost every musician did at the time, where you'd come to the end of the night and you wouldn't get paid, and they'd wake up Barry Richards and he'd say, well, that wasn't the deal. And then you'd end up not getting paid. You can talk to almost any musician, but he promoted the shows really well. And so there were people there. So that was kind of the story, but I needed to make money during college just for spending money, if nothing else. So I was in a band called Tic Tac. We played weddings. We had yellow tuxedos. We really good musicians in those bands, and eventually it turned into a quartet called Rhapsody, and we played lounges. And I would advise any young musician, if you want to just learn about every possible different style, wedding musicians are a great way to do that, because you have to stay current. You have to know a cha-cha, you have to know a tango, you have to know a polka, and so you learn all those things.
Celebrate, everything from
the world, but
celebrate, that needs to be a must, anything like that, at least today, right?
Well, Mary.
Well, that's so you went from Tic Tac to Off Balance, which was a little like kind of had a country edge, kind of a country pop band, played the local circuit. The first big jump, it seems to me, was with Big Yankee Dollar. And you guys actually got back together, and we'll talk about that in a minute, for a show at the Tribute at this wonderful venue behind me that is yearning. But Big Yankee Dollar, how did they come about? Because it seemed to expand things and really rose fast.
Well, let me change hats here.
Yes.
Now we're talking about my entertainment career. And I'm a man of many hats.
I love that.
I got this in New Orleans. Big Yankee Dollar was an awesome opportunity. I was coming from an original band. It broke up, and I was tired of doing the wedding band. I just couldn't do it anymore. I mean, because you really do kind of feel like your soul is slipping away after a while. So Bill Gear was a high school friend, called me and said, we got this band, the drummer's leaving, Carl Hulsefeld, good friend of mine, who still plays. He's not in this area. And we need a drummer. And we got a bass player and a guy named Gary Starr. And the main songwriter is this guy named John Jennings. And Bill had just met him. Bill had come from out of town. He had graduated from Coe College in Arizona, I guess. And he had a couple top 40 bands. And I always thought Bill was a great player. We had played together in high school, but it was mostly like a gig here or there. But I knew he was a great keyboard player. And so I went over and played with them and showed them a song I was working on. And everything just clicked. Again, going back to this organic thing, it was just totally organic. Nothing had to be forced. We were all into it 100%. And later, Gary Starr was left the band to do some other things, and Paul Pichata joined the band. And then we just kind of took off. I mean, we rehearsed for a year and we loved every minute of it. We weren't making any money. We were all working kind of part-time jobs, some with each other, some separately. And then after we really thought we had it together musically, then we played out for a year. And that was the entire meteoric rise of Big Yankee Dollar. We went from the free, Wednesday night at Mr. Henry's to the cellar door in basically 6 months. And
oh my God.
And we felt like this is it. And this is my life. This is where I was meant to do. And then we broke up very quickly.
Wow. The cellar door is kind of a huge leap for bands, I would think. Well, you got together in 2015 to do a tribute for John Jennings, right? Who had been in the band at again behind me, the Bethesda Blues and Jazz Club. What was the main impetus? Was the tribute to John, and who else is playing in this particular gig?
Well, by the way, the Bethesda Blues and Jazz is the only venue I've been able to walk to with my drums, because that's like 2 blocks away. And they had their own set, so all I needed was a trap case on wheels. I took a picture of it and put it on Facebook. It was first time ever and never happened again. But John was, dealing with his cancer, and everybody who had played with him over the years wanted to show how much they appreciated him as a kind and nice person and as a genius musician. He really was a genius. I mean, Big Yankee Dollar was his first original band and the first time he ever fronted a band. I mean, he wrote 90% of the songs. I wrote the other 10%. He sang 90% of the songs. Bill Gears sang the other 10%. So it was in many ways John's band. And yet it was a very jazzy, Steely Dan, Dire Straits kind of band, Rick Thompson. So it was very complicated, and I wouldn't call it fusion, but maybe some people would. I'd call it rock pop. But Chuck Underwood, the great Chuck Underwood, was a huge fan back in the day, and he would come here to John play and learn from him. And so when we heard about this tribute, I was actually at a rehearsal for a Beatles show. And in the room were Todd Wright, Tom Lofgren, and Cal Everett. And someone called me and said, "We're going to do a tribute. Are you in?" I said, "I'm definitely in, but we need to find someone to sing." And I looked at all 3 of those guys, and they all raised their hands, said, "We're in." And then I said, "Well, we still need to find a guitar player." And then we all thought of Chuck Underwood. And man, he put in the time, which was hours and hours to work on this stuff. It was hard stuff.
And I actually, obviously wanted to highlight you a little bit, being my featured guest this evening. This is a great clip, you guys. Again, going back to 2015, a big band in Chuck's life as things kicked off in his musical world, Big Yankee Dollar at the Bethesda Blues and Jazz Club.
Calling into your space, I can see it on your face.
Yeah, you were scorching it up there on the drums there. I was like, when I came to the second song, I'm like, that's it. That's the Chuck song I'm playing. But you guys really seemed to mesh. It must have been, again, wonderful after all that time to get back together and play there and play that music.
I remember one time we were playing Henry's, and we would goof a lot because we were drinking and we were young, and we were playing with gloves on once. But one time I would just scream out guitar players and ask John that he would have to start imitating them. So I'd say Jeff Beck, John McLaughlin, Jimmy Page, and he would do it. He would actually sound like those guitar players. He could do all that. So it was a lot of pressure. He was, I think, a genius. I really do.
Right.
And I think he just had enough and wanted to kind of step back,
Yeah.
So I will say that.
What's that? Say that again.
Out.
Yeah. I mean, it was sounds like an amazing experience to kind of kick things off. Right after that, it was Bill Holland and Rent Stew, which seems like it had some similar gigs as Big Yankee Dollar, but you started playing up some bigger venues. What did they stay together for any longer, or did that end early too?
Bill Holland was together for quite a long time, but I was in the last version of it.
Okay.
Bill was the front man, the main songwriter. He also allowed me to contribute songs, and he sang them for me. So I continued to be able to write songs. No one, they'd announce it on stage, but no one really thought of me as a songwriter because I wasn't singing. But I'd have to write a song that played to John Jennings' strengths, or to Bill Gear's strengths, or to Bill Holland's strengths. I couldn't write a song that was out of their range, and I wanted them to sing it strongly so the song would come off. So Bill Holland was just a great experience because Bill's just a great guy, very, very knowledgeable music historian. And he knew that playing music, a lot of it was about jamming. So he would create songs that were suitable for jams, and we would jam, and we would play Cellar Door too. And we released one album that we recorded at the Cellar Door as well. Right.
You did Bill Holland and Rent Stew. You did a year or so or more with Daryl Jr. Klein, who was on Living on Music in 3 weeks on the 28th. So I'm really excited, and it still continues to play after his own 40-year epic adventure in music. So I can't wait. But that had to be fun as well. In 1982. You jumped in with the Soul Crackers, and I've I've known that name since I've been in Washington for 25 some odd years. You're an original member. How did that come together? That's been an amazing run, and we're actually going to see a relatively recent clip in a minute. But how did that band come to bear?
Well, when I was in junior, which was so much fun, we would travel to Philly and lots of beach gigs and just having a blast. And junior's a trip. I've known him a long time now, but all of us were in junior, Klein and Recliners, and we all kind of wanted to do something a little different. So we all left to form Soul Crackers, and then junior went on to form, keep his band alive. In that transition, when I was in junior, it was Tommy Lepson and junior singing. And it was very powerful. They would do Sam and Dave like nobody's business, and they had a whole shtick. And Tommy was our sound man, but he came out front and started singing with Junior, and Spencer Hoops became our sound man. And then when we all decided to form Soul Crackers, the two horn players, Wayne Salk and Jeremy Schumann, or Jeremy Stone, they left, and Larry Strother, the late Larry Strother, joined the band, and we were a six-piece with Tommy coming out front, and John Hurd joined the band, and he was on keyboards. So Tommy got to finally come out front and be his bad self and just dance around and excite the audience. And we've gone through some personnel changes over the 37 years, but really not as many as you might expect. Paul Bell was in the original band along with Ronnie, Tommy, John Hurd, me, and Larry Strother. Over the years, Wayne came back into the band. Chris Hutton is on trumpet. We went through a couple guitar players. Dave Egelhofer was in the band for a while. Then Keith Grimes really helped shape us as kind of a more soul R&B feel. And then I'll take credit for this idea. I talked to Ronnie and I just said, man, we ought to get Anita and Kaz to sing backup because we met through Bandhouse. You know, that's how we met them. And,
good idea there.
From, and they came on and just kind of lit the whole show on fire. And they're so funny and they're so just sweet and nice. And of course, excellent lead singers. So all of a sudden we had a band, and then Paul has since rejoined the band. So we had a band with all the vocals you would need to tackle any song. It could be Earth, Wind and Fire. It could be James Brown. It could be Al Green. It could be anything, because we had 3 lead singers. So that enabled the people who were singing backup, like Paul and Spencer. Spencer, of course, also is in Soul Crackers. And Ronnie, they would sing pretty good, but it wasn't like having 3 lead singers.
Right.
But now with them singing lead and singing backup, they could all pull back and focus on their own instruments, which made them, the whole band, more solid and more exciting and more willing to do anything. I would tackle any song with this band. I know that we would come up with it. And we've played some Bandhouse shows where, like, Soul Crackers was playing Elvis Costello. You were on that show, right?
I do.
And that's a very odd pairing. But we did Spooky Girlfriend and we did Allison, but we did them in an R&B way with the whole band. And it made, those songs happened to make it on the CD. That wasn't favoritism. They just turned out to be good performances. And it was a blast. So that's how that band came about. We've been together 37 years. We've always had a Christmas show. This year will be the first time. We can't do it live, but we will do a stream and more details to follow, but it'll be on August 18th, Friday. And it'll be on Facebook, and we'll make sure anybody who wants to know is aware of it. We got some surprises. It'll be fun.
Great. I can't wait. Well, I'll push it big time on Living on Music too. I mean, I met Kaz, I think, at the Elvis Costello tribute for the first time, and that was a thrill. She was so sweet, and I remember standing over to the side watching him do Allison and watching you guys, everybody doing it, and spectacular. We're going to go back for a moment to the venue behind me, the beloved Bethesda Blues and Jazz Club, for a little clip of a wonderful moment for Soul Crackers and a little Four Tops.
Well, your voice I often hear. Another day, another night. Well, I long to hold you tight. 'Cause baby, I'm so lonely. Baby, I need your love. Got to have all your loving. Baby, I need your loving. Got to have all your loving. Some say it's a sign of weakness for a man to beg. Than weak, I'd rather be if it means having you to keep. 'Cause lately I've been losing sleep. Baby, I need your loving. Got to have all your loving. Baby, I need your loving. Got to have all your loving. And tonight is all your loving. Sometimes I wonder, oh.
Yeah, man, Chuck, you really get the power of everybody in that clip. That is that's always been a real gem to check out. You guys in that one of your many machinations. In 84 to 90, you did the New Keys, which sounds like it was again another wonderful experience. And this is with Tom Lofgren in the wonderful, well-known local Lofgren family. You had that other kid, Nils, that's done some pretty good stuff, as we talked about earlier. But this was Ronnie, Paul Bell, Spencer Hoops, Diana Rosenthal, It sounds like it was a really great ride. You got to open up and back up. Nils, how did that come to be?
Well, we started by all writing songs, Ronnie and Tom and I, and we each did a demo, and we all played on each other's demos. And then we said, well, that's 9 songs. Why not form a band? So Paul Bell was also on all those demos. And so we had 4 of us, and we kind of started rehearsing and working up more songs. I had a lot of songs backlogged by then because New Keys were definitely pop. And before that was, Soul Crackers, which was soul. And we did some of my originals in Soul Crackers, but we were mostly a good time cover band playing soul and R&B. We really weren't as much of an original band, but we did some. So we were together anyway. We thought, let's form a band. Eventually, we thought, it's the 80s. We need to have a synthesizer. And Spencer was, who's a longtime friend of mine. We used to live together in a group house, along with the artist who's allowing me to use his office, Lee Weinstein. And Spencer got a synth. He was willing to take it on and kind of learn all those weird tones and stuff. And that was our 80s sound. And then we wanted to boost our vocals. So then we added Diane Rosenthal, and she sang a few leads. And in that band, I wrote a third of the songs. Tom wrote a third, and Ronnie wrote a third. So we were all very involved. We had 2 albums we released. We had a couple of videos that John Collins did for us. That's when I first met John Collins. And that was in 84 when I first met him. And I've known him and worked with him ever since. He's incredibly talented and generous person. And
that's great.
Videos, and so son.
Yeah. We're going to go to 1990, which was, I think you guys have been together for about 6 years by then. Give a little synopsis of what this song Starting Tomorrow is all about, or who came up with that.
This is one of Tom's songs, and it's about procrastination. It's about you're always talking about improving, but you never quite get around to it. And I think we were all kind of writing songs about our lives at that time. It was when we were in our 30s. I think all of us were married at that time. We were just kind of dealing with how can we continue to play music and support a family and buy a house and a car or whatever. And so we all had other jobs as well. But Starting Tomorrow, the video probably portrays perhaps a slightly different message than just procrastination. But as with any good song or any good video, it has multiple messages depending on who's watching. So I hope you liked it. I thought it was fun.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to show a couple minutes of this 1989 video from the New Keys, Starting Tomorrow.
Stories of fire and rain.
When I look in the mirror at my aging face of the youth that I was, there remains a trace. I see the lines from the smiles and the lines from the pain, and I notice today that they're all the same. When I wake from my sleep in the dead of night, and await resurrection from the morning light,
Yeah, wonderful band. Tom's something else too. That Lofgren family, bunch of talented folks there, and just to have all you guys in that band is wonderful. It was the next adventure for you, and this is just wonderful. We're like cascading down the Chuck Sullivan musical pathway here. Nothing wrong with that. You're back with the always there in everybody's life, Tommy Lepson, and the Lazy Boys, and this was kind of an R&B original band. Couple albums, which is neat. You played the local circuit, colleges, and even I guess you played the White House too, right? Because Tommy mentioned that.
Yeah, I really did bounce back and forth between Tom Lofgren and Tom Lepson, and I loved working with both of them. Still do. I still work with both of them, and
Right.
I put out songs. I just don't really. Well, that's another story. But I did write songs for Lazy Boys, and we put out 2 albums. One was recorded live at the famous Dirty Nellies in Bethesda, which was kind of our home base. They really let us play there a lot. And it was true for New Keys as well. And then the second one was called Ready for This, and we did that in the studio. And they were both really fun. The second one we did kind of live in the studio, so we were really kind of a live act, and we played best when we were playing live rather than trying to perfect everything. The New Keys were into perfecting everything, and And so like Stuart Smith was brought in as a producer at one point, and he really helped us kind of settle down and say, look at the song, what's best for the song. It doesn't matter if it's exactly this or that. It matters if the song sounds good. We didn't have a producer with Tommy Lepson, so we were kind of producing ourselves. And it was with Big Mo. That's where we did our recording, studio that's gone.
Mm-hmm.
But we played the White House. And it was actually the Soul Crackers band that played the White House, or one of the versions of that band. And we were asked to play it by Bill Danoff, who was the Grammy Award winner of Afternoon Delight with Starland Vocal Band.
Right.
And Taffy and Margot Chapman both were available. John Carroll was not available. He was touring with Mary Chapin Carpenter. So they needed Tommy Lepson to help them sing their 4-part harmonies, which are incredibly complex, and that's why they won a Grammy for them. And so we backed them up and did Country Roads and a song that Bill Danoff had written for his, this was at the White House for a Bill Clinton 25-year reunion of University of Georgetown, or Georgetown University graduation, which was canceled at the time due to the civil unrest in the late 60s. So they finally got together, and it was a huge celebration, and it was the biggest sit-down dinner at the White House to that date. So it was a tent outside, probably 3 tennis courts big. It was huge. And we're in there, we're backing up, we're going to play a short set of Soul Crackers, we're going to back up Starland Vocal Band, and we're going to back up Chuck Berry. And it was my birthday. It was my 39th birthday.
Oh my God.
It was piled on layer upon layer. So we played actually a great gig for us at the Plains in Virginia, the Virginia Wine Festival, and we got them to agree to let us play first. We shared equipment, hightailed out of there, went right down to the White House, and then we were trying to. The main thing we were terrified of was backing up Chuck Berry. Ronnie and I were the only ones doing that. Everybody else was backing up Starland, but we had watched the movie Hail, Hail, Rock and Roll. We knew Chuck Berry could be a very stern taskmaster and ridiculed. And,
might even hit you if you grab his guitar or whatever he did to Keith.
oh yeah. I mean, he's a legend. What can I say?
Yeah.
Daryl Davis played with him a bunch, but he didn't play that particular gig. There was another guy whose name none of us can seem to remember. And but he was a really nice guy, and he just said, follow Chuck Berry's foot cues. When he hits down, that means you're supposed to stop, because it's not going to be like the record. And we had learned all the record versions, arrangements, and keys for Ronnie. And of course, I couldn't see Chuck Berry's foot, so that didn't help at all. And so it wasn't the best musical experience I've ever been in. It was certainly exciting and fun, but our only sound check was Chuck Berry kind of coming over, and he was kind of grooving on a standard rock and roll groove, and he'd kind of look at Ronnie and me, and we'd play along, And if he liked it, he'd just start playing like a slightly different Memphis type groove. And if he didn't like my kick pattern, he'd look at my kick and say, no, here. He wouldn't talk. In fact, he never said one word to me. All of his communication was through his eyes, his eyebrows, and his smiles or his frowns. But I think he was pretty psyched to play the White House.
You did 1997 to about 2002, 5 years with Groovy, which was a cover band that played, I guess the 60s. And then you said in Latin and African grooves. Where did that come about to take that kind of tack?
I think I convinced a lot of people to indulge me. I was interested in reggae and Caribbean rhythms and African and South American stuff. And I was kind of getting into it, reading about it. And yet I had no outlet for it. I wasn't good enough to be in like a jazz calypso band or whatever. But I was with people. Initially, Groovy was Tom Lofgren, Ronnie, and me. And we just would take songs. We actually played a private party and we did it there. I said, let's try it in this groove. And then we said, well, let's try to form a band around this. And we did it for a while. Tom got a little tired of it, but we would take Beatles songs or Rolling Stone songs, famous, well-known songs from the 60s. And then I would just say, let's try it in this groove, or someone else would come up with a groove. And then we'd play the song exactly like the 60s, except for to a completely different rhythm. We later added Mike Downey and Bill Craig. I don't know if he's been on your show. And Demi Katzen, and became a 5-piece. We had 2 lead singers, and Bill would sing some lead. And it was a cool concept. We would play bars, but a lot of people said, you guys play a lot of great songs. Why are you screwing them all up? I mean, we could have played them exactly like the record, but that wasn't what our deal was.
No, that wasn't the point, right?
We saturated our market, and then we broke up.
Well, that's great. What another great run though with Ronnie and the guys. I mean, it's just it seems like it, and we'll delve into it here and there. And we have it's like a family that you created with some of these guys, and it seems to continue to go on. And another example is in 2005, Paper Umbrella was formed. Another original. I think your third or fourth original band, maybe your third, that made a couple albums. I assume you probably did some songwriting for them. This was Tom Lofgren, Ronnie Newmeyer, yourself, and Dave. And I mean, what a great, what was the difference between that band and others, or did you turn back into kind of more of a pop sound?
Well, it was kind of New Keys phase 2 in a lot of ways, but we were essentially a studio band. We would rehearse in my house and record, and we put out 2 albums. We only played a couple gigs. And then we just decided we'd done everything we could do. I loved that band. I wrote a third of the songs, so did Ronnie, so did Tom, same as New Keys. But we were much more adventurous because it was a studio band. So we weren't worried about a live audience's reaction. We weren't worried about being danceable or exciting. We wanted to be like XTC, just really creative, like Squeeze or something. Just put out something that was different. And we would go from a rock song to something that was very pensive to something that was totally like an instrumental, and we just had so much fun doing it. And sometimes I would write the lyrics and just Tom would pick it up and write a song, or I'd present a song and Ronnie would add a bridge. So it was the most collaborative band I've ever been in. And for that reason, I thought the songs were very strong because we all took ownership,
That's wonderful to hear, especially after so many years knowing these guys. It's great that you guys, nothing's perfect, no relationship, but gosh, what a wonderful bunch of guys to get together and collaborate. We're going to show the entire video here. Usually I only show a couple of minutes of a video or something, but I want everybody to see this entire thing. It's so much fun, so wonderfully done on an animation level as well. Each of the guys in the band become their own superhero of sorts. This is from Paper Umbrella. What year was this? About 2006, 7, something like that, Chuck?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean that's what the window's like 2005 to 2009 for Paper Umbrella.
Yeah. This was
It's in that. It's in that window. This is a
2007.
wonderful experience with these guys in Paper Umbrella, and a song called "Stupid Head."
Let's make sure that, we don't get too fast with it, but not too slow. Sort of like hit that perfect groove, you know what I mean?
Sure, I know exactly
Okay.
what you mean. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I seem to live with the clouds in my head and do as I do, not as I said. But when the head's all in my pain, I can't control my brain. My stupid head is stuck in the song. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. When I stop and think of all the cows and pigs playing in the grass, it makes me feel like eating leaves for the next week. But I don't control their fate, and if they end up on my plate, it doesn't make me a heartless soul. But these thoughts still take their toll, and my stupid head is stuck in this song. It makes things up as it goes along. My heart beats, I'm breathing, my soul is searching for inspiration, illumination, but I can't stop If I stop thinking soon, I'm gonna sing a different tune. Yeah, my stupid head is stuck in the song. Stupid head, it makes things up as it goes along. Stupid head, my stupid head, sometimes it's right, sometimes it's weak, sometimes it's short, my stupid head is stuck in the song.
Oh my God! Seeing you guys, knowing you now, it would have been fun to watch it, not having any idea who any of you were. But now, knowing who you are, it's just, oh wow! Tell me a little bit of how that came to be.
Well, John Collins again was involved, and his son Andy was getting into graphic arts, and he said he wanted to do a project for school, and he said, I want to do something with Paper Umbrella. So he went to each of us, all four of us, and said, just you give me a superpower you wish you always had. And that was the only direction we were given. We had no idea what he was going to do. And then he filmed us just as a mostly just a face and close up. And we were supposed to kind of like roll our eyes around. We didn't know what we were doing that for, but he had a vision. And that's what you saw. It was all Andy. We really didn't have much to do with that other than playing the music. And I thought it turned out great. I just thought it was just funny and creative and entertaining, and helped promote the band. It was great.
Yeah, it was a blast. I love. That's why I had to roll the whole thing, especially because your superhero came in later in the song. But I love the way everybody, and Ronnie was hilarious in it and everything like that. Going back just briefly, Chuck, to your songwriting, because that is a wonderful talent to have, especially for, again, a guy who isn't a singing drummer. And you talked about how your singing voice wasn't, grown over the years. Whatever reason, your strengths obviously went in other places, but you were able to write for three main singers, as we talked about: John Jennings, Tom Lofgren, and Tommy Lepson. Three different guys, different voices, different types of music. How did that help your songwriting with having those different ways to write?
Well, I mean, I guess everyone needs limitations to an extent. It's helpful. It doesn't leave such a complete wide open palette. So I knew if I was writing for New Keys or Paper Umbrella, that was Tom Lofgren. I kind of knew what kind of stuff he liked and what kind of stuff he really didn't like, whether it was too many lyrics fit in or out of his range, at his strongest range. Tom's voice has gotten better over the years, actually. And in Paper Umbrella, it was extremely strong. And now it's even stronger. I do a lot of gigs with him with Beatles songs. And he's great.
Right. Oh, yeah.
John Jennings was really kind of a talk singer. I mean, he would sing, but it was very expressive. He made everything very personal. And that was what made him so engaging as a front man. He was a great front man. And so with him, I could get as weird as I wanted because he wrote the weirdest songs I'd ever heard. So I could get esoteric. I could use words I would never put in a song, and I could write any melody, any chord change, any time signature change I wanted. It didn't matter. John was into it. That band was experimental. And then Tom Lepson, he's got his feet firmly planted in the blues, R&B, soul genre. Always has been. That's why he's so great at it. So whenever I'd write a song for him, it would have to be more in that vein, in those types of progressions, not solely 1-4-5 in the blues tradition, but
right.
That realm. And the grooves had to be in that realm. They had to be funky or R&B-ish. They couldn't just be whatever, or they wouldn't mix with the other songs we were playing live. And that was the whole idea,
Speaking of writing, you talked a little bit about writing short stories back in the day, and then decided again to put your full concentration in the music kind of world. But around 2015, you began an undertaking, a journey to write a book about one of my favorite musicians for sure. I remember seeing him at Jones Beach in 1987 or 8, sitting in a tent, and it was so spectacular to see him play live. Just was waiting for Low Spark the whole show, of course, but I loved reading this book as a rock and roll fan. It's called About Time: The Unsung Genius of Steve Winwood. In a relative nutshell, Chuck, this had to be a wonderful achievement for you, not only because you were such a fan of his work, but also just because of what you discovered as you were going along, of how widely talented he was and respected, and how many different kinds of things he did. What a great experience.
Well, let me change hats.
Exactly.
We're talking about writing.
It's the traffic hat. You can't find your way home. You can't find your way home, can you? Sorry. I'm here all week.
Same here. Writing a book was it was a lifelong goal. I don't really know why, except for I always wanted to do it. I guess it goes back to college, and I would talk with my mom a lot about it, and I just never really thought what it was going to be. I always figured it would be fiction. But when Bandhouse Gigs did the tribute to Stevie Winwood in Traffic at Wolf Trap, we always do liner notes, and sometimes I write them, and sometimes we bring in great writers like Richard Harrington or Mark Walson or Desson Thompson, and Jonathan Mudd actually did the last ones. And everybody's got their own style, and they're all willing to just do it for free to get a chance to. We give them poetic license to express their views about the tribute artist any way they want to. So anyway, I was doing research on Winwood, and I just became more and more interested. I realized I had a lot of his music, even though I wasn't really trying to follow him. I had Junction 7. Not many people had that album. I had Far From Home. I had Ark of the Diver. This is after Traffic, after Blind Faith, after the second version of Traffic. And then I realized, God, I've really been following him even though I didn't know it. And then I just kind of researched, well, what books have been written about him? And there had only been a couple of books written about him right after Back in the High Life, which was in 1986.
Mhm.
And the tribute
that was the tour at Jones Beach. Yeah, the Back in the High Life tour
yeah?
we saw. Yeah.
I had seen him at 9:30, and then I saw him again after I wrote the book. But it was right after, Back in the High Life. He was almost 40 years old.
Yeah.
That was the biggest selling album. He was kind of billed as like a windblown, suspender-wearing, flowing 80s hair guy, like a leading man almost. It really wasn't like any other phase of his career. It was his solo career. And, those songs all won Grammys, those two albums, Roll With It and Back in the High Life. And then I realized, God, this guy is frankly amazing. And then I started saying, oh, he was a great session player. Oh, he played like 14 different instruments.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, this guy seems like a really cool guy, And then I said, I'm going to write the book. And so I had to call in every favor I had with the famous musicians that I either knew or who knew someone who knew Steve Winwood.
Right.
And I started with Stuart Smith, who knew Rodney Crowell, who lived near him in Nashville. And he gave me an intro letter. And then I talked to Andy Newmark, who played with Nils, but also played with Roxy Music and John Lennon. And, he was in that album, Double Fantasy. And he gave me an introductory letter too. And he played with Winwood in the studio. And then John Carroll, who gave me some great quotes in the book, an amazing, amazing musician.
Yeah,
and
he'll be on the show in about. I think he's going to be on with me in a month or so. Yeah,
he could go on for many interviews. He's had many, many different lives, and he got me an interview with Russ Kunkel. He's like one of the most famous drummers of all time, with Carole King and Jackson Browne and James Taylor, everybody. But he also toured and recorded with Winwood. So I got about a dozen of those caliber interviews with people in his current band, Jose Nito, Johnson Somerset was a producer, and all of them said the same thing. And it just raised my admiration. It was just like, man, if everyone were like Steve Winwood, the world would be a better place. I never heard one person say one even slightly negative thing about Steve Winwood. They are all impressed by him. They're in awe of him. He leads by example. He does not embarrass anybody. If he has a suggestion about your part, he takes you aside privately and says, how about you do this? And of course, they're honored that he even talks with them. And of course, they'll do whatever he asks. Right. And I just came to see him as the musician maybe I could have been if I had his talent. Because he was a musician. He didn't want to be a pop star. He wanted to be a songwriter and a guy who could jam, and a guy who just loved the continued learning process of being a musician. That's what he wanted. Right. That's what he is. And so I was almost finished the book, and I tried to contact Winwood again, and I got his wife, Genia, and through email. And I had an editor and a couple of friends helping me who were writers. My editor was Bruce Samuelson, and Mark Walston helped me write it. Ronnie Newmeyer helped me proof it. And I wasn't quite finished yet, but I was kind of reaching out to see if I could get Winwood to give me a quote or something, And Genia responded, and when she called, I was like jumping. I was 10 feet in the air going, oh, God, Genia's contacted me. She's going to want to be on the show in the book. And we talked for a while. She was extremely nice. And she said, well, would you like to meet him? And I said, yeah, I'd like to meet him. And so she set up the meeting at May 1st at the Warner Theater. And I went backstage and got to meet Steve and take a picture with him, talk with him for a bit. And later on when Bandhouse did our show there, it was like, wow, how many circles am I completing here?
I know.
So
Yeah,
surreal.
different ones. And you've written you've written songs in the bands you've been in as drummer. And Jim Capaldi, one of the great rock drummers, and his Traffic drummer, was also a percussionist who writes songs. So that's a neat parallel that you had with some of that too, that the Winwood lore.
Yeah, it was an amazing coincidence, really. And I could understand how, when Jim talks about writing a song for Steve Winwood, how he went through that process. Now, Steve Winwood has a voice of like 2 octaves, and he can pinpoint any note, whether it's in the scale or the scale you're about to go to. He's really, if you listen to him closely, he really is laser focused.
Spectacular.
And yet Jim had a good voice, and he sang when they did Low Spark, that album. Jim sang Rock and Roll Stew, and what was the other song he sang? They were both hits, and and Winwood didn't mind that Capaldi was going to come out front and sing lead, but of course by then they were getting great rhythm sections to back them up, and they were no longer a trio,
Yeah. That's what a wonderful find that had to be too. What a great job, guys. This is the book. It's called About Time, The Unsung Genius of Steve Winwood. Chuck Sullivan wrote it. You can go to, I believe, the direct line is stevewinwoodbook.com. Is that still valid?
Yeah, you can go there. You can buy it wherever you buy books.
Yeah, go pick it up for somebody who's a rock fan for Christmas. It is wonderful. It's a wonderful, wonderful ride through his career. We've taken such a great journey, and right now, today, or at least a few months ago, as the pandemic hit prior, you were in, surprise, another band, which you joined last year, and it's Jonathan Mudd and the Powers That Be, some more hugely talented folks. Talk a little bit about how that came to be, because I know the album was put out and then boom, you guys have had to kind of slow down a little bit like so many other bands.
Well, I am a band guy. I mean, I think if you ask your musicians on your show, are you a band guy or are you a sub guy?
Right.
I mean, some people really enjoy the challenge of being a one-night, one-off sub, and I do sometimes, and I've done it before because I've had to make money. But my thing was always to be in a group, so you got a band sound that's always evolving, and they would be willing to play my songs. So with Jonathan Mudd, I met him through Bandhouse. I feel just as fortunate as everybody else who's met people through Bandhouse. And he was working on an album, and some of the songs were his from a while ago, and some were new. And he said, I don't want to do just another pop album, and I said, that's cool, because I really want to do something different too. I want to play more percussion with a stripped down set using different mallets, and really just approach this totally differently than a normal pop band, because they are pop songs. So we recorded the album called Reanimate, and it was released, and became great friends with Jonathan during that process. And then we said, well, why don't we get a live act together? So then we had to get a band together. So Cal Everett came on bass, Ed O'Connell came on keyboards, and eventually Buddy Griffin came on with pedal steel and guitar.
Wow.
We had out of 5 people, 4 could sing really well. I'm the one who didn't. And we're doing Jonathan's songs, and I'm playing quietly, so the vocals are really out front,
Right.
And we got a gig at Jam and Job on a really rainy Wednesday night back in February. It went over great. I had a blast. I talked a lot of my friends into coming out. We were very well received. We recorded that night, although I've heard the audio, I haven't seen the video, but because almost immediately after that, before we could even say what's our next step, the virus hit, and we knew there was no next step. We had already recorded an album. We couldn't rehearse. I would have rehearsed if we could have done that.
And you're looking at having this kind of hopefully evolve back out of the pandemic, I would think, right? You guys are going to jump out and try to, is that going to be one of your main musical focuses as we come out of this, is to do more with Jonathan?
I'm very happy playing with Jonathan Mudd and the Powers That Be, wherever we can get a gig, because it's original music. I'm very happy playing the Soul Crackers wherever we can get a gig, because we're a 9-piece band. and a lot of clubs have closed permanently, unfortunately. So they're going to have to reopen. We had a lot of gigs planned for 2020, and they were all canceled, of course. And then, of course, Bandhouse. I miss it so much. It's been a huge part of my life for 16 years, and we've got a whole year being put on hold. And Bandhouse, we've never rested on our laurels. Our goal is always to put on a great show because everything starts there. Everything after that is a result of putting on a good show and then selling tickets and then networking and then rehearsing. All the other stuff starts with a good show.
When I interviewed Ronnie 2 or 3 months ago, I had the Barnes behind me, and he was like, "Hey, you're the first one to get there. You can sing a Linda Ronstadt song for us right now." And I'm like, don't tempt me. There's too many of them. But what a wonderful full circle to kind of close out with some more accolades and love for Bandhouse and Ronnie and you guys. It just Chuck, you've had an incredible run that's to me not even close to being over, and I want to thank you for coming on and walking down a memory lane. A lot of people have done it with me, and you certainly were high on the list of seeming to really enjoy coming down the list. I hope you had a good time.
I had a great time, Steve, and really thanks. I don't know who's interested in me. Frankly, I'm interested in me, but I don't know who else is. My family.
You'd be surprised. Oh, yeah. Well, no, we're already seeing a lot of generating on the during the show and also beforehand. But again, you're the swath of people that you guys cross, not only within your own network with the Ronnies or the Tommy Lepsons and the Tom Lofgrens and the other guys, but the huge spectrum of people that. Not even just the people that I've had in the show, obviously, but God, everybody who's come in speaks so highly of you and Ronnie and the whole experience that you've really not only for yourself done a wonderful thing, but you've really done it for musicians around here to be able to go and participate in doing such a great thing. And I'm certainly not an exception. My life musically was playing wonderful small little bars as a middle-aged cover band singer, and to be able to do the Fillmore and the Barnes with you guys was incredible. And to play it back, I'm like, wasn't bad. And then I have Arch Alcantara on the show who was standing next to me on singing "Pump It Up" at the Elvis thing, and then it's just the community that you guys have helped foster with Bandhouse Gigs and all of the music that you've done. It's a lot of your doing that you've kept people together. I know you feel that the community in this area is very, very special musically.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you one thing the pandemic has brought home. I mean, as musicians, we miss playing. As music fans, we miss hearing music. And it should never be taken for granted. It never was with me. I always knew it was a privilege to be a musician. It's not something, it's something you earn, but you can do everything right and still never make it in music. But the fact that you can go on stage and play and get that type of reward is unique. And it was like John Jennings told me, and I had it in the book. He asked me, it was actually when he was in the hospital and I was visiting him, and he said, Chuck, what's the purpose of doing an album? And I said, well, to express yourself and, you can promote it. And he goes, no. The purpose is so you can do another album. And truer words couldn't be spoken. I mean, the reason why you play one gig is so you can play another gig. The reason why you do one song is so you can write another song. It's all a privilege. It's nothing that you are entitled to. You have to earn it every time you go on stage. And if you don't, you're in the wrong business. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
But if you do, it's an endless exploration. It never stops. I'm playing a lot more piano now.
Right. I mean, that's it. I mean, I started singing, 15 years ago, and I can't do enough. I mean, I'm in two duos, two rock bands around here that are playing, and we've done about 15 gigs virtually over the pandemic. But you're right. You catch it, you love it, and it's something that you just want to continue to expand on. And again, I can't thank you and Ronnie enough for bringing me on for those two experiences. I hope you get to do it again. Chuck Sullivan, thanks so much for bringing all this music together for so long, and also taking your time to be here on the Hat Show. I mean, on Living with Music. The Sombrero Show, we should call it. But again, let's do it again soon. I hope to see you in person after too long and after everybody gets back out. But thanks again for being here.
Thanks, Steve. Take care. Stay safe.
You too, man. Well, gosh, that is just one incredible journey. I know it's an amazing. I love to be able to give people a chance to walk back down memory lane. People have told me that they remember things they didn't necessarily remember before. They're reliving some things that gave them such joy. They're understanding why they had some challenges and really getting a sense of themselves again. So that's why we took such a long ride. It's funny. I think two of the longest shows I've done are with Chuck and Ronnie Newmeyer, and what an honored for me to have both of those guys, as well as every guest I've had. But those guys who are kind of almost the captains of the ship, obviously, of Bandhouse Gigs, and have had such an incredible run, and they will be back. Hopefully someday, maybe I'll get a call and get to go back and sing on a Bandhouse Gigs. But what an amazing, amazing guy. And thanks to Chuck Sullivan. Real quick, we're going to run through the next month on Living on Music. And boy, you guys, do I have, speaking of Bandhouse Gigs and great local musicians, next Monday, the 14th, Billy Coulter, a Washington, D.C. singer-songwriter, kind of straddles the line between roots rock and power pop, has kind of influences like Dylan, Cash, Lennon, Bowie. Got to sing with him. I believe it was at the Elvis Costello, if not the Bowie gig. And just an incredible musician, great guy. He's made a name for himself with some really unique songwriting and vocal abilities. And we'll hear some of that because he's going to play a couple of songs live for us here on Living on Music. He won the Album of the Year, the Song of the Year, Songwriter of the Year, Roots Rock Recordings of the Year, 10 Whammies to his credit, and 30 nominations. Billy Coulter here next Monday. On the 21st, this is going to be a very, very unique and special episode of Living on Music with Sound Impact. Now, that's Sound Impact as a collective of musicians who are dedicated to serving communities and really igniting positive change across the United States and across the world. And we're going to be talking to the three founders of Sound Impact. I can't wait till we do this. We'll talk a little bit about how the live performances and educational programs and creative collaborations with other artists create this kind of entity that has taken itself by storm across Costa Rica, especially doing some amazing things there with education and programs for kids and playing shows. So don't miss that one on December 21st. It's a great lead into your immediate holiday Christmas season. I'm talking to one of the most incredible organizations I've seen in a long time, Sound Impact, on the 21st. On the 28th, his name came up today, has come up in a lot of shows. This guy, Daryl Jr. Klein, has been around for 40 years, played with Chuck. Chuck played in his band. I love the comment. He said he's a real trip. So we're going to have a real trip on Living on Music on the 28th. Daryl is just one unbelievable signature performance style he has, singing style. His lasting sound is so wonderful. He's got the soul of the blues, horns, different kinds of things, R&B. Just an amazing guy who has had some of my guests in his bands over the years. Just an incredible guy. I'm so happy to have Daryl on the 28th. And on the January 4th, wow, for more than 30 years, Linwood Taylor, who's a Washington native, he's a veteran blues guitarist, has performed and toured internationally, fronting his own band. He played in the Joe Louis Walker Band. He's also performed on stage with people like Albert Collins. I mean, come on, guys. Lonnie Mack, Eddie Kirkland, to name just a few. There's many more than that. He has his own CDs. He was on the cover of the Washington Post magazine in a highlighting story, Year of the Blues, many years ago. And he's been honored in Living Blues magazine as one of the top 40 under 40 blues guitarists. And this was a little while ago. So it's so exciting, though, that he has been continued this blues career. And we were so excited to have Linwood Taylor on Living on Music. And coming up this week on ZTV, tomorrow night has a personal kind of feeling for me. It's our own Grace Arnold welcomes Alan Stillman, who is the founder of the Stroke Smart campaign. And it's Spot a Stroke, Stop a Stroke is designed to save lives in the precious moments after a stroke. It's extremely close here. My partner, who I live with, Suzanne Sukumas, her brother Perry, suffered a devastating stroke. Gosh, Suzanne, I keep forgetting how long ago, 10 years ago, at least, something like that, maybe a few more. he has been working with the Stroke Comeback Center for years, and we're big supporters of them. Just did a 5K a few weeks ago for them. So this is a very, very near and dear kind of thing. Alan is going to be talking about this really wonderful campaign called Stroke Smart. You'll want to tune in, especially if your family's been affected. And that's tomorrow night at 7 right here on ZTV. Wednesday at 7, Paul Dean returns with his Legal Matters show, and he's going to talk again about the importance of having an estate plan in place, and especially for the parents of very young kids. It can really help planning later and resolve some issues that you might not be thinking about. So that's Wednesday night with Paul Dean. And Thursday night at 7, Matthew Robertson of the 13 Choir. This is a nice musically toned show on Thursday night. Really excited for this. They'll be talking about some things that we've been talking about on Living on Music. Matthew will be joining Grace Arnold, and they'll be chatting about performing in a COVID world, which we talk about every show with my guests, and previewing the group's December 20th virtual concert, which is an evening of readings and carols. So that's going to be really wonderful, I'm sure, to be able to check that out. And that's Thursday night at 7. That is this week on ZTV. And not forgetting that Lucello Flaherty, Susan Fleischman, David McClure are all out there shooting things. I know that last night they did an incredible job on the Del Rey Christmas tree lighting ceremony and event, gala, fun. And I'm sure that was a wonderful open kind of feeling for people to be able to get out and feel some joy for the holidays. So way to go, ZTV and Alexandria and Del Rey. I'm sure I know it was a wonderful event. Living on Music is a production of Zebra Press. Again, our man driving the train is David McClure, our wonderful new ZTV producer, editor extraordinaire, and Lehigh graduate, Lainey Delaney. Love having you on, Lainey. So great for you to be a part of our organization. We're very, very lucky and love collaborating with you. The Zebra Press publisher is the one and only Mary Wadland. Love you, Mary. You can visit the Zebra at thezebra.org. Wonderful website with tons of things that go on in this area. And the Good News Zebra Facebook page. Again, good news is the angle that Zebra takes to try to bring informational and positive news where they can into your life. You can also get an edition of the December 2020 Zebra newspaper. It is all over the place at about 125 newspaper boxes, 400 bulk drop locations, restaurants, grocery stores outside them. And you can read it online at thezebra.org or get it delivered. I read the Post every morning, read it this morning, read it every morning. Love having that newspaper, love having my Zebra Press in hand. It's such a great overview of what goes on in this area, you guys. Stuff you might not have even heard about, people you know, people you don't know. Just gives you a sense of where you live and what people are doing and how you can also engage in a lot of different things. So go check out the Zebra newspaper. Want to thank again my extraordinary guest, Mr. Chuck Sullivan, for a memorable walk down his memory lane. Thanks again, Chuck, so much. This coming Monday, December 14th, the one and only Billy Coulter will be joining me on Living on Music. Until then, remember, every day you're living, every minute, if you're going around, be the good news in someone's life. Take care, y'all.